morning. Thank you all for
Michelle Garcia with the New Mexico Attorney General's Office.
CDC Department.
Paul Weiler, Detective, Las Cruces Police
Ella
Department.
Frank, Parole
Karen
Board.
Wyman with the New Mexico Coalition Against Domestic Violence.
From New Mexico Asian Family Center.
Crime Victims Reparation Commission.
Lauterbach, Adult Protective Services.
UNM Department of Emergency Medicine with the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiners Collaborative.
Children, Youth, and Families Department.
With the Roswell Refuge.
Southwest Tribal Epidemiology Center.
Detective with the City Police.
St. Taurus Probation and Parole. I sit on the board of an intimate death review panel team, and basically what we do is we go through a bunch of different cases and realize what could have been done to stop a murder from occurring. And a lot of the times what we see is that there just wasn't enough knowledge, there wasn't enough people that were informed about signs that could have avoided this entire situation.
Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Intimate Partner Violence Death Review Team. You've all received the case that we're going to be discussing this morning. It should be in front of you. This morning we're going to be talking about Jessica, who is a 15-year-old female, and her ex-boyfriend Michael, who is an 18-year-old male.
This is the case of Jessica and Michael, who had been dating since Jessica was in the 9th grade, which would have meant Michael was in the 11th grade, I believe. They had been dating for about 19 months prior to her murder.
We're recently learning that teen dating violence is a serious public health issue.
1 in 5 women throughout some time in their life will experience some form of domestic violence. The same thing with teen dating violence.
The incidents of dating violence are highest between the onset of adolescence and 25 years of age, not only nationwide, but here in New Mexico. In fact, rates of domestic and dating violence are a bit higher here in New Mexico.
Kids that are experiencing teen dating violence have higher rates of depression, have higher rates of suicidal thoughts, they drop out of school more often. Substance abuse is a terrible problem, and early sexual activity, sexually transmitted diseases, it sets up kids for a lifelong, serious lifelong issues that need to be dealt with and taken seriously.
When they started dating, apparently she had been doing an awful lot of wild and crazy things in high school. She had moved high schools. Parents had moved her into a charter school. She had simmered down a good bit. She had become active in some of the school activities and the swim team.
It's interesting to note that Michael said to Jessica's mom that I have to keep Jessica away from everybody, and when Jessica's mom asked about why that was, he said, because they all drink alcohol and I don't want her involved in that stuff again.
I think the sad part here is the fact that this family had invited this young man into their house. They trusted him. They felt that he was very protective and helping in the situation, having no idea by watching this that he was actually controlling her rather than protecting her.
It'll usually just start out as, you know, you should really change that skirt that you're wearing because it's too short.
He was really controlling, and I don't know, he's very possessive of them, and he won't let them talk to any of their friends or anything.
It doesn't always have to be like physical. It's just like it's verbal and mentally. Like they always do their little mind games, like going after like their weaknesses. Like if they're tall, fat, too skinny, they just call them different names.
In freshman year, my best friend was actually in an abusive relationship, and she didn't even realize what was going on.
Well, at first, everything was like all happy-go-lucky, like a normal relationship, I suppose. And then he started texting me a lot more and like wondering where I was, but I didn't really think anything of it. I just kind of thought it was normal, you know? And then he got to the point where he didn't want me to hang out with my friends at all. Like if I wanted to go hang out with my girlfriends, he'd tell me no, and if I did, that he'd like break up with me or whatever.
We were friends before we were anything else. We were just really good friends at first.
He was doing the kinds of things that a overly protective boyfriend was doing. He was controlling, in fact, who she was talking to and communicating with. It doesn't appear that the parents got that distinction. On the one hand, he was attentive. On the other hand, he was protective. On the other hand, he was controlling.
Ironically, they saw him as a safety factor.
So one of the things that I see in this is some really classic examples of power and control and building up over time, starting with, oh, I just want to spend time with you, you're so important to me, I want to protect you from these other influences, then becoming I can't live without you, and really escalating into higher and higher danger over time. And I think that escalation is part of what makes it hard for friends and family to see what's going on.
One of the first things that happens is there's this giant power differential just with the differences in their ages also, and especially at that age.
You know, neither one of them appeared to know what a healthy relationship was or what, you know, was involved in a healthy relationship. And signs of that would involve the fact that they were looking at each other's cell phone, you know, they had jealousy issues.
He would just get like so jealous even if she just waved to them in the hallway. Sometimes it would get so violent that he would just yell at her and be like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this to me. Why are you saying you love me when you really don't and you're talking to all these other people?
For the other person, it becomes like they're normal, like, oh, they're just being really loving, they care about me, things like that. And
they never see it. They think that, oh no, this can never happen to me.
You're seeing all this affection and attention as being love instead of possession or obsession over you.
And then I was talking to this guy one day and he like pulled me aside and he's like, don't talk to him, he wants to get with you or whatever. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. And I got mad and I was like walking through the parking lot and he like grabbed me and like threw me against his truck. And he's like, don't talk to him again, and if you don't listen to me, I know you don't love me.
He cut off my friends. Like, I have my best friends, my first best friend, he's a gay guy, and he didn't like me talking to him. He didn't want me talking to my mom.
And at that point, I knew I really had a problem. But I still didn't break up with him for like another 3 months, I suppose. I guess I was scared that if I did break up with him, I wouldn't really have a life and no one would love me because my friends, I hadn't hung out with them in forever. And he had like so much control over my life, I didn't know if I could do it by myself anymore.
I think a lot of times the reasons why they don't say anything is that they're afraid of losing those relationships. So maybe today she's angry at her boyfriend or she's afraid of him, but by telling her mother or father, then he's possibly removed from her life. And I think that is a key point for many teenagers, that it's that fear of losing that.
And the other thing is, I think a lot of times women and even girls get in a situation like this and they feel helpless. And they know that sometimes they're not going to be believed when they do say something.
I'd like to go back to the cell phone issue for a minute. I don't think people understand how important that cell phone is to an adolescent child these days, and how much ability there is to control somebody through the cell phone, and not just by taking their cell phone. We talked about what a big deal it was for him to have actual control over her cell phone and monitor her texts. But it's also a way to control behavior.
Young people are more vulnerable, I believe, than adults to something called technological abuse. And that's where technology becomes a weapon for dating violence. And that can happen through frequent overuse of texting or texting constantly.
I have a friend right now who has a girlfriend, constantly texting him, calling him, and like just all that messaging, you know, trying to like wanting him, you know, for herself.
I was dating this person who would obsessively text me all the time, like every 3 minutes, like on the clock, every 3 minutes. Just like, where are you? What are you doing now? Can we hang out? You want to go hang out right now, right now, right now?
They would text me like every single hour or every single 30 minutes, and it was crazy and ridiculous because I was like, I'm in school right now and I can't be texting you while I'm in school, and you're in school too.
And the other thing that's big with the adolescents these days are sending the sexting messages to each other. They'll take their shirt off and they'll take a picture of themselves nude and send it to a boyfriend. Well, that's a huge lever for an abuser to say, look, if you try to leave me or you try to move on to somebody else, I'm going to send this picture to everybody I know. It's going to be on the internet.
Another important piece is about social networking sites. A lot of teens are on MySpace, Facebook, Twitter, those kinds of sites, and that gives abusers a lot of information about where folks are at, what's going on in their lives.
So technological abuse is when one person, stalks someone through the internet, through Facebook or MySpace. It's a way for them to know the activities of that other person.
And he stalked me for a really long time and wouldn't leave me alone, and he called me all the time, and he did try and text me on MySpace and stuff, and I freaked out and erased my MySpace.
When somebody is constantly texting, constantly calling, monitoring that person's social networking page on Facebook or MySpace, and constantly demanding for that person to be available. So that's a major warning sign, and that is something we're seeing escalating because technology is so pervasive now with youth.
Like, I've heard they use GPS now to track where your partner is, and that's, creepy.
Stalking a person through the use of GPS technology, looking at their texting or their emails to monitor where they are. And also kind of looking at their social networking sites all become a way for a person perpetrating domestic or teen dating violence to start tracking what's happening with teens. So that's how they monitor them.
Parents really should be monitoring their child's information on those websites.
The problem is that some parents don't even know what Facebook is, so we've got this knowledge gap between teens and their parents that makes it very difficult for parents to monitor what their teens are doing on a daily basis.
One of the parenting skills that we need in this decade is how to get into those kind of social networking sites and how to peruse them.
It's also not always about social networking sites, it's just about in general being a part of your kid's life. Talk to them when they come home from school, find out who their friends are, see who they're talking to on the phone, if they're staying up late at night in chat rooms, stuff like that. It's not so much just following every move that they do, it's just being a part of their lives and being able to talk to them.
There's a national study that shows that most parents don't know when their youth are being abused, whether they're experiencing technological abuse or physical or emotional abuse. So it is coming as a shock to parents. Parents are just now learning that dating is starting as early as age 13. I also think some parents don't take it as seriously. They perceive these relationships as not being as serious as young people think they are. So they kind of minimize it and think, oh, well, this is just a phase, it will go away. But parents absolutely need to get involved because there are serious consequences that come from dating violence.
Now, we know there had been an incident with a gun 5 days before that, and I believe it was at swim practice, where he had, when she was threatening to break up with him, and by the way, there were 2 or 3 occasions at which he threatened suicide over the breakup, that he showed her a gun.
And he'd call me and he'd be like, I'm gonna kill myself if you don't go back out with me. And he actually sent me a picture with a gun in his mouth, and he's like, if you don't call me right now, I'm gonna shoot. And so I called him and I actually got back together with him.
He had threatened suicide at this point, and earlier he had cut off his contacts with other people and concentrated fully on her. So she has this, he's at her house all the time, he's threatening suicide. At this point he's pulled out a gun.
He's threatened to kill himself, and so with the recent breakup, on top of all those other things, it's really kind of like, it's a no-brainer that, something would happen shortly after that.
It took me 3 times to actually break up with him and stay away.
I think the really critical thing right here is that when right prior to him coming to the house and shooting her, she'd sent him a text and told him to come and get his stuff.
I was trying to leave him one day because we were arguing, and he flipped out and he ended up locking me in the closet because I tried to leave.
That's when most people get killed, is when they're getting ready to leave, and that's what precipitated the shooting.
And he actually came to my house when my mom wasn't home. And I told him to leave, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna leave. And I'm like, get out of my house. And I like ran to my mom's bedroom, and I was like trying to dial her number, and I had it, and he like grabbed me by the leg, and I was actually like, fell down, and like got on top of me and pulled my phone away. And he's like, talk to me. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you, and this isn't talking, this is attacking.
The boy obtained, the young man, he was 18, I think, at the time this happened. You know, let's not call him a boy, he's a man. The man got the gun from his grandfather. Grandfather had handguns in the house or other weapons, so that's the origin of the gun. But he had been carrying that gun for some period of time. I'm not sure that we have the information about how often or how long he had been carrying a gun. The girlfriend was aware that he had been carrying a gun for some time, and what she did with this information, we don't really know at this point.
And I started to walk out on him from the party. So I was walking, and I got like 3 blocks before he said, Kathleen. And I turned around, and he just came and he hit me straight in my head. And he said, you don't leave me.
And I don't know, somehow I finally got the phone, and I got locked in my mom's bedroom, and I finally called her, and she's like, I'm gonna be there. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I called my mom, and he left.
The young couple drove back to her parents' house. The arguing continued. At about that time, the father was driving up, but prior to the father's arrival in the actual driveway of the house, the boy shot the girl in the chest.
Well, today is a Department of Health free workshop that is intended to build capacity across the state for workforce to understand teen dating violence prevention. So what we were able to do is to bring 80 people across the state, including youth, from all different professions, including school resource officers, teachers, mental health providers, as well as young people, to talk about preventing teen dating violence. Red flags is a way for us to figure out who is at risk and how serious the risk is. So for young people, this is a pretty good checklist of information for you to know about warning signs. Okay, so what does this acronym mean? R starts the assessment with relationship status. We want to know if they're dating. We want to know if they're about age 13 or younger and they're dating, that's a red flag. Do they have respect in relationships? How do they stay resilient? How do they bounce back from difficult situations? And also, we can empower them by helping them to understand their rights in relationships. The E stands for emotional and technological abuse. I noticed that that tool did not include stalking, and it's really important. So I added stalking in there, as well as educational sabotage. The F stands for friends and family. How connected are they? Are they being isolated? And so if you notice in the first part of this screen that you're seeing a lot of these red flags pop up, either that they're perpetrating this behavior or that they are being victimized by it, then it's time to move to L, which is a risk assessment. That helps us to understand how serious is this violence in their relationships. A is the quick assessment. It's anger, aggression, arguments. Are the arguments escalating? Abuse or stalking history. Have they themselves been abused? Have they abused former partners? Access to weapons is a big one, and especially when I've worked with young people who are gang involved, that's a question that we always want to talk about. We always want to kind of assess for. Animal cruelty, attempts or threats to harm. G stands for give youth-centered resources. So you found these red flags. You're talking with this young person. You really know now, okay, we need to step in and help get this person safe. So there are youth-centered resources available, as well as a link to a safety plan.
Peer intervention is very crucial because our youth don't go to their parents, or they don't go to the police, or more or less even the counselors. They go to each other when they need help.
Really, don't be quiet. If you know somebody, if you have a friend that it looks like that they're experiencing this with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, talk to them. Don't be judgmental. Tell them that there may be a problem here. talk to an adult you trust.
We need to train our youth to listen to each other and communicate with each other, and when they hear the red flags, then to be able to tell somebody and get resources for our youth.
The toughest thing is probably having teenagers think that what they're seeing is okay, that what they're experiencing is okay. That's normal. It's okay that he stalks me. It's okay that he follows me everywhere I go, because that's what love is. That's not what love is. You don't have to be under a microscope. You don't have to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be alone. It's okay to be happy by yourself without having to have someone watching you all the time.
I would lead off with any work with young people talking more about respect and dynamics of healthy relationships. Teaching healthy relationships as early as even 6th grade is really critical, because that gives young people an expectation of what to look for in relationships rather than believing that violence is okay.
I think the parents don't realize that this kind of thing that can start out so young.
Most of the time the parents think that it's just kids stuff, like it's just high school. It's high school, you're going through that phase.
A lot of teenagers too don't want to tell their parents about their relationship. They don't want them to see this person that they are going out with. They don't want their parents to think that they're going out with a bad kid, because they might be afraid. Their parents would tell them, "I told you so, this would happen. It's your fault, you got yourself into this situation."
You know, it's also that teenagers don't want their parents to be a part of their relationships, because they feel like, because I know for me it's kind of like, oh, this is the first part of myself that I actually don't have to share with my mom or my dad, that it can actually be just mine.
I didn't want to tell my parents about it because I was afraid that they would judge me or make me break up with them, and I really didn't want to break up with them. I thought he'd change. And I knew if I told my parents, they would tell me to. And so it took me a really long time to tell my mom. And when I did, finally, I'm really glad I did, because she had a lot more to say than I thought she would. And she was really supportive.
We can say, listen, these are the mistakes that I learned from. This is a poor relationship I was in. And this is what you deserve as respect. And these are the guiding principles that you should have any relationship invoke throughout your lifetime. And I think that having those conversations and admitting as parents that we don't have all the answers, but we do know when something is not respectful, when something is bordering on emotional abuse, when something is too controlling, we can recognize those signs and say, hey, I don't have all the answers, but let's talk about this. What do you think is healthy? You know, what do you think is acceptable?
People want the abuse to end, but not necessarily the relationship to end. So there can be a lot of mixed feelings. So stay calm, let them know right away it is not your fault, no matter what the abuser has told you, no matter how many times you've been blamed, and you're not alone. This happens in every demographic, every group of people throughout our society. You're not in some loser group of people that this happens to.
I think one of the things that makes this case so sad is the fact that there were so many opportunities for intervention, and it took basically silence on the part of so many different people, which led up to this poor girl being murdered.
One thing I'm kind of looking at is her friends and who she was associating with. I'm sure she told her friends, I didn't return your cell phone call because he took my phone from me last night. So they saw him, you know, the monitoring of her being at practice. So her friends kind of had a clue of what's kind of going on in this relationship, and no one, they either were afraid themselves to report, or they didn't know that those things were wrong.
Well, one of the things that children, especially mid schools, when they start developing these relationships, intimate relationships with other students, is that they need to remember to trust their gut. You know, if that first blush of love, they want to be with that other person all the time. But if that person starts controlling them and they feel frightened, they feel afraid, they feel annoyed, then they need to trust that and realize this is not a healthy relationship and talk to somebody about it.
It's not just teachers and parents that need to be concerned about this, but everyone who has young people who they care about in their lives. So coaches, youth group leaders, neighbors, we all need to get involved and let kids know that there is help available. And sometimes I hear folks saying, well, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, I don't know how to intervene. But you don't need a special degree to say, I'm worried about you, you can talk to me, I'm here to help.
It takes a lot of courage on the part of a parent to call the school and to say, I've learned this from my child. And so I think we had probably multiple missed opportunities with parents who might have been alerted by their own students at that same school.
If you're feeling you're having out of control issues, you have to know where she is every few minutes or text her, then you really need to seek some kind of mental health assistance, because that is just unacceptable. And it can be stopped before it comes to this point, and she's dead and he's spending 27 years in prison.
I stood in it because I thought I was in love, and I thought he loved me, and he promised me the world and so much more, and he never lived up to anything. So it's just basically, if you're gonna sit there and someone tells you that they love you, but 10 minutes later they're sitting there calling you a bitch, they don't love you. They just want somebody to have power over, someone to control.
And it took me a long time to build up relationships with my friends again. And I thought it would take a while to build a relationship back up with my mom, because she had been telling me quite a while, and I thought, I don't know, she would think I was stupid or whatever. But really, we got like the best relationship ever now, and it's awesome. And now I really appreciate my friends a lot more, and I am okay. And I'm getting through college and high school and work, and it's so much easier than I thought it would be. I'm so glad I got out, because I'm actually like happy now.
I think we all have to understand as best we can that the incidence of this stuff is growing. We have to take this stuff more seriously. We are sacrificing some lives here that don't have to be sacrificed. And while we honor the young woman's death, and we will make some meaning out of this death, we want it to save other people. And young people and parents and everyone reach out, because we can save lives with this information.